So you've been put in charge of making the flyer for a school event. No worries, because Microsoft Word can help you make a very elegant flyer. Now what I've done so far is I have typed in some basic text. I have one image in here already. I'm going to bring a couple more in so you'll learn how to do that too. But we're going to turn this into a pretty elegant flyer before we're done. Now before I start with this, I'm going to click on my percentage magnification, and I'm going to ask it to show me the whole page, just so I can see what it's going to look like. And, I mean, that'd be okay, but let's add a little bit more flair to it. First thing I want to do is put a nice border around the outside of the flyer. Now, if you want to put a border around it, you'll find those commands in the Page Layout tab. So I'll go to Page Layout, and in the Page Background category, you'll find the Border command. Now if I click on Page Border, I can put a basic line around the outside. For example, I might select the predetermined box. You can see I put a box around the piece of paper. I could change the color, maybe make that red, and maybe even make a little bit of a thicker line. And let's see what that looks like. And it already adds a special flair to my flyer. But I want to go to the next step. What I want is, rather than a line, I want to put a graphic image in that border. So let's go back to Page Borders. And way at the bottom of the Page Border tab, you'll find Art. And there's all kinds of different graphic elements that you can use to put a border around your paper. Now for what I'm doing in this example, I like the apple. I just think that would be appropriate. And I click OK, and just like that I have a real nice apple graphic around the borders of my page. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I want to put another piece of clip art in, just like you see at the bottom here, to add a little bit more to it. Now to put the clip art in, I'll simply go to my Insert ribbon. The Insert ribbon, fundamentally the things you'll find in here, are going to add new elements to your document, and the one that I want to do in this case is to put a picture or clip art in. Now the difference between these two, if I select picture, that's going to bring an image in from a file. Maybe I have a digital camera that I want to bring a picture in. What I want to do instead though is to use one of the images already provided to me in Microsoft Word. So I'll click on the clip art button. And you can see the last time I used this, I typed in the word school, and it came up with this as a result. Let's try something else. I'm going to type in the word book. And I'll click the Go button, and we'll see what it comes up as examples for me. Now you might recognize some of the examples are the same because these graphic images may be tagged with the word school and also the word book. I mean, that makes sense. But let's see if we can't find something that would be appropriate for our open house. This would be an appropriate graphic. Once I find a graphic, I'll simply click on it, and you can see it places that graphic in my document wherever my cursor was, so put it at the top. Well, that's the graphic that I want. Let's now go in and modify a little bit. And for this, I'm going to zoom in. Come down to my slider bar, and I'll drag it until I get maybe a little bit less. Right there looks pretty good. Now if I'm not going to bring in another clip art image, I could simply close up this panel, and now I can work with my graphic. The first thing I would like to do is to make that graphic larger. And to do that, I'm going to strategically position my mouse in one of the four corners. I'll get again a mouse with an angled arrow, and that allows me to stretch the image to make it larger. Now this image looks like it's really becoming pixelated. As I stretch it, you can see the bumps in it, and I guess I really don't like that image when I do that. So what I'm going to do is to delete it by pressing the delete key, and let's go find a different one. So back to Insert, Clip Art. This is why you may want to keep this open until you find the image that you want to use. I'm going to go with this image. That looks pretty good. In fact, I'll just make it a little bit larger. There we go. Now at this point I may want to work with this image. I may want to reposition it, put a fancy border around it. And the one nice thing I like about this version of Word is when I'm on the image, you can see it brought up a special ribbon. It's the Picture Tools Format ribbon that gives me a lot of choices to work with this graphic. Now if I go back to, let's say, the Insert, and I click on Elementary, you can see that that ribbon disappeared. But if I come back and click on my image, you can now see that that ribbon reappears. So you do have to watch what ribbons are available up on top, or in the same breath, if you're trying to modify something, make sure you have it selected so that Word knows what tools it should give you. Well, let's go back to the format. And a couple things I want to do to this. The first thing I want to do is to maybe change the position of the graphic. Perhaps I want to put it in the upper left-hand corner, upper right. Let's go back to the left. That just looks like a good place to position that. Now if you look at my image at the bottom, you'll see I have a pretty fancy border around it. And the way that I did that, with my image selected, I simply selected one of the picture styles up on top. Now when you hover on these images, you will see it gives you a preview of what that's going to look like. And there's all kinds of examples that you can pick from. That almost looks a little bit too formal. If I scroll down, some of these I really like. They give you kind of an elegant look, especially if you inserted an image from your digital camera. Now I'm going to go back to the top because the one that I like for this one is this shadow. I just think it softens the image and kind of gives it a special flair. Let's go back and see what this is going to look like when I print it. So do the whole page zoom. And there I have my spring book fair with a couple elegant graphics. This one I might want to tone down to kind of match the style of this one. I also really like that border that I put around the outside of this flyer. That's how easy it is to create a pretty elegant flyer. Some people will use a different application to create a flyer like this one. Word can do a lot of this for you, from a simple border around the outside to doing some very elegant things with images that you place inside your document.